I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume. So I will be skipping around a little bit as I move along. Right now, we will finish the story of Jephthah, reading chapter 12 in the book of Judges. Gileadites slay 42,000 Ephraimites. Jephthah, Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon each in turn judge Israel. So we're going to pass through quite a bit of history here now. And the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together and went northward, and said unto Jephthah, Wherefore passest thou over to fight against the children of Ammon, and didst not call us to go with thee? We will burn thine house upon thee with fire. And Jephthah said unto them, I and my people were at great strife with the children of Ammon, and when I called you, ye delivered me not out of their hands. And when I saw that ye delivered me not, I put my life in my hands, and passed over against the children of Ammon, and the Lord delivered them into my hand. Wherefore then are ye come up unto me this day to fight against me? So again, this is kind of the same thing that happened with Gideon. Ephraim comes and is all upset that they didn't get to join the fight. And it's not that they were sorry that they didn't get to kill people. They didn't get their share of the loot. Because back then, when you destroyed an army, you had the right of looting. You had the right to spoil the army. You took all the gold and stuff, all the jewelry they had on them. It all became yours. But it wasn't like the country got it. It was the soldiers. Individual soldiers would go out and they would loot the bodies and what they got. And that's what Ephraim was mad about. They didn't get to go out and loot the bodies. It was the same thing with Gideon. Now, with Gideon, they actually did take part. They did kill some of the Midianites, and they got some of the best loot. But with Jephthah, they didn't go to the fight at all. So they're upset about that. But Jephthah's saying, wait a minute, I asked you to come help me, and you didn't. So stop complaining now. Now, as you might recall, the Ammonites invaded in the east. They were kind of occupying the east and just raiding into Ephraim. They weren't occupying Ephraim. And so when Jephthah went and fought the armies of Ammon, he liberated Ephraim too. He prevented more raids into Ephraim. So, but he didn't fight within the boundary of the tribe of Ephraim. That's where this is coming from. Ephraim wants their share of the loot. Verse 4. Then Jephthah gathered together all the men of Gilead and fought with Ephraim. And the men of Gilead smote Ephraim, because they said, Ye Gileadites are fugitives of Ephraim among the Ephraimites and among the Manassites. And the Gileadites took the passages of Jordan before the Ephraimites. And it was so that when those Ephraimites which were escaped said, Let me go over, that the men of Gilead said unto them, Art thou an Ephraimite? If he said, Nay, then said they unto him, Say now, Shibboleth. And he said, Sibboleth, for he could not frame to pronounce it right. Then they took him and slew him at the passages of Jordan. And there fell at that time of the Ephraimites 42,000. And Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then died Jephthah the Gileadite, and was buried in one of the cities of Gilead. Now, I love this story. This is one of my favorite accounts. It's just it's hilarious. The Ephraimites get all mad, say, you didn't give us the loot. And so they invade Gilead, which is part of Manasseh. But they say, oh, you're the Gileadites. You're not really Manasseh. You're not really Ephraim. You're not really part of the family of Joseph. Because Machir, whose son was Gilead, he had married outside of Israel to give birth to Gilead. And so they say, oh, you're not really Ephraim. You're not really of the family of Joseph. So we're going to just destroy you. So they invade. They move east of Jordan, and they invade the area known as Gilead. But they are soundly defeated and driven back. But the Gileadites take the Jordan and all the fords, all the crossings of the river, so that the Ephraimites, when they're fleeing from the battle, have to cross. And I love this, because the historian tells us that not only were they divided by tribe, that they had different kind of governments, that each tribe was independent of each other, but they even spoke differently. They had different accents. Because when somebody came and they said, first of all, this indicates that if they came and they admitted that they were of Ephraim, they were allowed to pass. They weren't just killing Ephraimites. They were killing those who were trying to be deceptive. So if they said, yes, we're an Ephraimite, I think they let them go. Now, it doesn't state that, but I think it is implied that if they said, no, yes, I am an Ephraimite, then they were like, oh, because it doesn't. I think that's the implication. But the best part is if they said, no, I'm not an Ephraimite, then they were asked to say the word shibboleth, because the people of Ephraim could not pronounce the SH sound. And so instead of saying shibboleth, they would say sibboleth. And in that way, they would give themselves away, and then they would be killed, not for being an Ephraimite, but for being deceptive, for the deception. So I just think it's fascinating that the historians or the writers of Judges let us know that within Israel there were different dialects, different accents, different ways of speaking. And so while they could still communicate with each other, it would be much like somebody from New England going down to the South. You know, in New England we talked about the cod. We drive a car down the road. At least that's the old Yankee accent of New England, right? From Chiota. But in the South, it's not car. You actually pronounce the R there. You have the car. So it's just an interesting thing that we actually get this detail in the scriptures, that dialects and accents existed between the tribes of Israel. Anyways, let us continue. No, one last note. Jephthah only judged for 6 years before he dies. Now, unless he died of wounds sustained in battle, it gives me the impression that he was a fairly old man when he was made captain. He was still a powerful man, great fighter, great warrior, but he was getting on in years, which would also indicate that his daughter was not 10, 12 years old. She was probably in her late teens, early 20s, and he was probably around 60. Anyways, verse 8, let us finish this out. And after him, Ibzan of Bethlehem judged Israel. And he had 30 sons and 30 daughters, whom he sent abroad, and took in 30 daughters from abroad for his sons. And he judged Israel 7 years. Then died Ibzan, and was buried at Bethlehem. And after him, Elon, a Zebulonite, judged Israel, and he judged Israel 10 years. And Elon the Zebulonite died, and was buried in Aijalon, in the country of Zebulon. And after him, Abdon, the son of Hillel, a Pirathonite, judged Israel. And he had 40 sons and 30 nephews that rode on 70 ass colts, and he judged Israel 8 years. And Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Pirathonite, died, and was buried in Pirathon, in the land of Ephraim, in the mount of the Amalekites. So we're getting a series of righteous judges. This, as I said, I think there were other judges, but these are the most notable judges. These were the most righteous, or for their time period, they were the most righteous. When Ibzan was judging, he was the best judge in Israel. When Abdon judged, he was the best judge in Israel. They weren't the only judges. Each tribe probably had their own judges. So Ibzan was Bethlehem, meaning he was of Judah. Abdon was a Zebulonite. I can't remember the third guy's name, but he was of Ephraim. So there's a couple of things we understand from these chapters here. Is that, first of all, the Israelites were not always righteous. Besides falling into idolatry, the Ephraimites were, we see the Ephraimites more than once getting upset that they didn't get to go loot the enemy. They had this greed to them, this desire for wealth. And they were willing to go to war. They were willing to attack other Israelites over this desire of wealth. So Israel was not a unified country, not even in language. They had different accents, different dialects. They were not a unified people, and they were not real faithful to the commandments of God. So there are many times besides idolatry that we see evidence of other wickedness. And that will bring us into the next section that I will read, but I will talk about that in a follow-up video. And I will see you then.